Um, our- all right, good morning and welcome to our online user group. My name is Wayne Welk, automation specialist out of New Orleans, and I'm just going to introduce our speakers today and turn it over to our panelists in just a moment. As you just heard, our webinar is being recorded and we make these available after the fact on our digital archives. Today's topic, as you saw, that previous slide was just a single word, modernization. We kept it very simple this month, but it's going to be a lot of different topics coming at you today on a lot of various modernization topics to discuss. So go ahead, next slide again. So as we typically show our upcoming seminars, in next week at this time, next Wednesday, we're going to do a tech talk on remote access solutions. We'll present some of the various remote access solutions that we work with, such as HMS or E1, as well as a new Stratix 4300 product and a few other ones, including one from ProSoft as well. And then in August, we're kind of fleshing out our topic still, but we're going to talk about a power topic, and kind of a power update, and an IEC 61850 update as well. So that'll be our user group in August.
And we'll pick an exact date for our recorded version. It's either going to be the 20th or the 27th.
Correct. Yep, we'll do an online session just like we're doing today. And we just like to always show this slide because our website had got a refresh last year, and reynoldsonline.com. If you go under the resources section, you will find all of our digital content, blog articles, our podcast links, our videos on YouTube, as well as any news and upcoming training and events such as our user groups and tech talks. Next slide. Next, there we go. So today we're going to have 4 presenters joining us, guest panelists. 3 of them are specialists with the Reynolds Company, and then we'll have a guest from ProSoft. So kicking off today is going to be Brad Freeman, and then David Nute. We don't have everybody's names listed, unfortunately, but we forgot to put Brad and our ProSoft guest, but Brad Freeman, David Nute, Mike Masterson, and Freddie Sherrill from ProSoft will join us in just a little bit. And with that, we'll let Brad take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Brad Freeman. Like Wayne said, I did not quite achieve the honor of having my name on the intro slide. I am the services specialist for our North Texas area. That means from our Tyler and Lufkin offices through the DFW area, down 35 towards Waco and Austin, and then out west going through Abilene and our Odessa offices. So my job title covers training, covers tech support contracts, covers remanufacturing and repair, all of the support services that we offer to help you run your business, run the automation equipment that you purchase from us. I'm here to help you figure out how those services fit with your business model. I also have 2 counterparts. Andrew Hultgren is in our Houston territory and covers many of the offices that are around that area. And then Joe Boudreau is in Louisiana. So depending on where you're listening from, I might be your first point of contact, or it might be one of them. If you're not sure, reach out to your Reynolds account manager and they can help with that. So the point of the services section, having it up here off the bat, is, like I said, the services are how we help you run the automation equipment you're purchasing from us. I will have a slide at the end here that is a list of all of the different ways that we can do that. But what I'm going to be focusing on mostly, what you see on the screen now, is what's called the installed base evaluation. When we're talking about modernization projects, this is always my starting point. So what is it? An install base evaluation, or IBE, because acronyms make everything easier and they always make things more clear. The IBE is a detailed plant survey. We're going to come in, look through your facility, look through all of the control panels, and then we're coming back with a whole slew of data for you. We're going to be looking at what part numbers you have for everything installed in there. So you have a full bill of materials. What condition are the panels in? Where in the plant are they? How frequently are they used? We then take all of that data. Again, a giant pile of raw data is not especially helpful. And we put it into a series of reports. There's a data team on the back end who that is what they do. So this data has been sifted, analyzed, and is being presented to you then in these series of reports that are designed to be highlighting the specific actions you can take to minimize risk, increase the health of your infrastructure, and honestly, to increase profitability. Mike, if you could go to the next slide, please. So yeah, the goals, like I just said, we're looking to reduce downtime, maximize value, increase reliability. It's the usual suspects of how do we help you run your business better. Back, please, Mike. I want to stay on that slide for just one moment.
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry.
Nope, not a problem. How are we generally doing that? When we're looking to reduce downtime, we want to make sure you have the right spares so that when things do break down, you're back up and running as fast as possible. Providing troubleshooting assistance is also part of that. Maximizing value, that's really what we're talking about today. How do we plan migrations? How do we plan modernizations? How do we identify where you're most at risk? And then there is a series of reports as well. That's just the general reliability. Is there wiring issues? Is there grounding issues? Do we have cabinets that look like they're left open and are now covered in concrete? I've seen that before. It wasn't pretty. The panel didn't last. Mike, you can go ahead to the next slide now. So I'm going to run through a couple of the reports, just basic screenshots, just so you have a general idea of what type of information we'll be presenting. I have these available as spreadsheets. I can put them in a zipped folder and send them to you. Reach out to me if you want to see a little bit more detail on exactly what info you would be getting, and we can dive into that together. Go ahead, Mike. So of the two, I'll call them the workhorse reports that you would receive, the two reports that give the most information are the most useful in planning migrations and managing your facility. This is the first one, which is the view that we give to your storeroom. So if you're someone sitting in the storeroom saying, I know there's a bunch of automation equipment in my plant, what's the, how much of it is there? What part numbers are there? What do I need to have on hand so I can support? That's what this report is for. So if we look from left to right here, we're going to be identifying what life cycle all of these parts are in. So if it's discontinued, we know we need to be talking about not just do I have this part number, but do I have the part number it will be migrating to available as a spare? Of course, the part number itself is something that we need access to. If we jump over a few columns, how many are installed? How many are we recommending you have for spares? Now that recommendation comes from how many are installed, how often they are running, and what is the industry average mean time to failure. So those three items, again, how many is running in the plant? How often are those panels running? Is this a 24/7 operation, or is this on a machine that only runs a couple times a week? And then mean time to failure. So what's the average time before this part typically fails? All of that goes into our recommendation. We then compare it to what is already in your storeroom, and we give you a list of either excess spares, things that you have sitting on your shelf, taking up space, taking up capital that doesn't need to stay here, or on the flip side, the insufficient spares, items that you really need to increase your profitability. Go ahead and jump to the next report, please, Mike. So that was the storeroom view of all of this data. We also try to arrange this for our maintenance and engineering partners at your facility. This is broken down. You can see that these have little filter tags on them. It's in a spreadsheet. You're going to be able to adjust this data to see as you want to. But it's in the plant hierarchy that we've built with you. So we're looking at 4 different levels. Either we can filter it to, I just want to see the furnace end of the plant, or the dry end, the packaging area, where we can just look at individual silos of the plant, breaking that down in individual lines, individual machines, all the way down to panels. And we can be looking at bills of materials for those different sections. Then on the far right, we've got that life cycle data again. So we can use this to analyze and start to realize which parts of the plant are most at risk from a life cycle standpoint, where we're seeing the most discontinued products, and start to make those migration and modernization plans. One last note I will give before we jump along here. Well, I will say 2 last notes. One is, when we do an install base evaluation, these reports are the deliverable. Again, there's 6 or 7 of these reports. If you want to deep dive these with me, let me know. I'd be more than happy to. But there is a additional optional service called asset optimization, where we partner with Rockwell and we have a reliability focused engineer come in, sit down with you, and not just take these reports and hand them to you, but start to work with you on how do we make a defined set of actions, an actual plan of order of importance, which areas we need to focus on first, where are you most at risk, really start to put together detailed steps to get you towards a recommended state. And then lastly, we have quite a bit of additional support. The installed base evaluation is the one that I always want to highlight when we're talking about modernization. But as you're bringing new technology into the plant, we have training. We have field service engineers who can come in and help you with these projects. We have repair services that we can be using on the discontinued items to make sure that you have the time you need to migrate. You have equipment that keeps running in the meanwhile. So whatever step you're on in that journey, let us partner with you. That's what the services group here is for. And then, of course, the IBE is the assessment, the plan assessment that we want to be using to create that path forward with you. So with that, Mike, go ahead, jump to the next slide. I will step out of the way and let our specialist team jump into the conversation.
All right. Thanks a lot, Brad. Appreciate that. And yeah, the install base evaluations is a great program. We see a lot of success with that down here in Houston. So thanks, Brad. And next time, I promise you'll get your name in lights. I apologize for that this morning. We forgot to put your name up there, but next time. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about controller modernization. My name is David Nute. I'm one of the specialists in Houston. And so go ahead and you can move the slide, Mike. So within controller modernization, first thing we'd like to talk about are what are some of the tools that you have at your disposal to help you get started. And so, whether you're a system integrator or maybe you're a user that is doing an internal modernization, you'll want to get to know some of these tools, and that helps you in the pre-design stage or the design stage and the planning stages of the modernization project. So the first thing we'll talk a little bit about is IAB or Integrated Architecture Builder. So for those of you that are not aware, IAB or Integrated Architecture Builder is a free software download from Rockwell, and what it does is it helps you in the pre-design or the design phase of any kind of a project, whether it's a new project or a modernization, with any of the controllers, from Rockwell. It even gets into networking and things. But the important piece of it is it remembers all the little bits and pieces, all the base plates and the terminal blocks and all those things that you might be forgetting about when you're building a bill of material for a project. And with respect to modernization, there's about 3 different wizards built into the product that step you through different migrations of controllers. So there's a PLC5 migration tool, there's a SLIC SLC migration tool, there's a MicroLogix migration tool. And so that's really where you want to start when you're looking at a controller modernization. And essentially what you do is you build your existing system in Architecture Builder, and then with a few clicks and a few decisions, you can build up a new bill of material with, whether it's ControlLogix for a PLC5 migration, or a CompactLogix for a SLIC migration, or even a Micro 800 bill of material for a MicroLogix migration. And so this is where, or if customer comes to us and says we want to migrate this project, this is where we go first as well. But this tool is available to everyone to use. So that's definitely step 1 in a controller modernization. The next step is, which is important when you get into the configuration and the programming, are the different conversion tools that are available. And so Rockwell has published free utilities that assist in converting a PLC5 program to Studio 5000, for example. There's also a RSLogix 500 to 5000 migration tool that you can use for SLIC migrations. There's also an RSLogix 500 to connected components workbench migration as well. That's a little bit newer, and that will assist you in taking a MicroLogix program over to a Micro 800 program. So for those of you that don't know, the Micro 800s are programmed with a tool called Connected Components Workbench, or CCW for short. So that's kind of step 2. Step 2 when you're owning a controller modernization is utilize those conversion tools. And they're not 100% conversion. It depends on the complexity and some of the instructions that you use on your older project. But typically, you'll convert 80 to 90% of your logic from the old stuff to the new stuff. So that's definitely something you want to utilize in a controller modernization. The next step, which is more of a commercial step, but if you need a little extra discount to justify the project costs, Rockwell does offer a step forward return for credit program for some of the legacy hardware. So just don't forget about that step. That could save a little bit of money and help justify the project cost of migrating. But that's more of a commercial pricing step there, but an important one. And then finally, inside of, and this is all inside of an Architecture Builder, but there are a couple of conversion systems that help the migration project as well. And what these do is when you're planning a downtime situation, because we know these systems that have been installed for 15, 20 years, they're running 24/7, most of them. And typically to do a modernization, you have to plan a downtime event. Sometimes we don't get an opportunity to have an extended downtime. And typically the most time consuming aspect of a modernization program, when you're actually on site converting it, is the wiring situation. So whether or not you have to lift and land field wiring to new hardware, if you don't have time for that, or if you don't want to do that, then Rockwell has created 2 different wiring conversion systems, one for a PLC5 conversion and 2 for a SLIC conversion. And so we use those quite a bit. Over the years, we've probably done hundreds of PLC5 conversion systems. And essentially what that does is it allows you to keep your field wiring in place, and you have an IO conversion chassis that's available that will connect directly from the new ControlLogix and the PLC5 migration case from the new ControlLogix IO directly to the field wiring of the PLC5. And about 2 years ago, Rockwell released a second wiring conversion system that does the same thing for a slick migration to compact Logix. And so those are time savers, engineering costs or labor cost saving systems as well. And so and to help you with the generation of the bill of material, those conversion systems are embedded inside Architecture Builder. So when you do your conversion project in IAB, you can do the conversions, and so IAB will create a bill of material with the correct wiring, chassis, and cables, and all those kinds of things. So that's kind of the basics of some of the pre steps in the conversion process. So let's take a higher look at the controllers and their product lifecycle status. So this is a kind of a high level slide. We'll spend a little bit of time here explaining what this means. I think the first thing I'll do is explain in the middle the different statuses. So in the product lifecycle of a control system at Rockwell, you've got 4 statuses here. You have active, mature, end of life, and discontinued. And so there's a slight description there below each one. So just kind of moving. So an active life cycle means it's a product that Rockwell is adding new technology to. It's adding features, it's adding functions. It is also I would say the current technology for that particular application. So whether that's a Micro 800, Micro 850, or a compact Logix 5380, that's the latest technology that's available to perform the control that you need to do. So when you're looking at a new system, you want to make sure to do your best diligence to install and to buy the active products, and that's what we actively pursue, et cetera. So the next stage over, you have your active mature. And so what that means is the product is still being produced by Rockwell. So they're still making new parts, but they're not adding any new functionality. So, and importantly, that also means that there's a newer technology that does the same thing that's an active product that's available. So it's a clue to you that a product in active mature status is kind of on its way out. It's still around, it's still being produced, but it's on its way out, but it's not out the door yet. And so we say typically a product can be in active mature state about 5 years, but that can change, especially now with our supply chain challenges we've had in the last 12 to 24 months. Sometimes that active mature status shrinks. And we've seen that this year on a couple of products. So active mature is really a message to the install base of that product that, hey, there's a new technology available, number one. Number two is we're getting towards the end of life for the product. And so that leads us to the next stage, which is end of life. And that's a little more defined because what Rockwell does is say when you move from active mature to end of life, Rockwell typically will procure a set number of components for that particular product, and that's the last piece of that's the last number of components they have. So they have a basic idea of how many more modules, CPUs, et cetera, power supplies that they'll be able to create for that product line. So they give it a little bit tighter time frame, which is somewhere between 12 and 24 months. And that's what we call end of life. And so when a product goes end of life, you will see a date. If you go to Rockwell has a product life cycle status website where you can type in any part number, and then it'll tell you the life cycle status. And so if a product is end of life, you will see a date. So that could be, you know, December 31st, 2022, or whatever that might be. And that date, it doesn't mean that that date is an estimate. So it's not precise necessarily. So as you approach an end of life date for a product, there's a chance that product may be unavailable before that date comes. So when you see something end of life, you really want to pay attention and make sure you have a plan in place to migrate. Even if you're not performing the migration right then, you just want to have you want to have a plan. And then finally, we get to the discontinued stage, which when a product is discontinued, Rockwell no longer creates new modules or new components for that platform. And so you can see, we'll talk about the specific products here in a minute, but you see the description under discontinued is service only. So when a product is just discontinued and you have it installed, you still can service the product, meaning you can still purchase, you can still do reman and repair for that product for a number of years. But there's no new products available to buy. So if you did have some failures in the field, or if you had some spares that you wanted to recertify, discontinued product you can still do that with discontinued product. So Rockwell does keep a set of components available to do the service only, but not for new products. And so now we'll talk a little bit about some of the. Oh wait, go back, Mike. So let's talk a little bit about the platforms now. So notice PLC 5 is still listed as discontinued. Now PLC 5 went to discontinued status in 2017. So that's 5 years now in discontinued. And I believe I've seen some notices from Rockwell that the PLC 5 is going to end its discontinued status in the not too distant future. So what that means is then there won't be any service to be done on PLC 5. But you can look at some of the other products here. So the SLIC 501 and 502 is discontinued. Basically all the MicroLogix except the 1400 are discontinued. We'll talk about the 1400 in a second. So these products, you'll need to migrate these products. And then two of the CompactLogix there, the L3X and the L4X, those are the first generation of CompactLogix. And so those, the easy way to differentiate those are the CPUs that have a 9-pin serial port on the front end of them. The 5370, which look a lot like the 3X and the 4X, those are active products. So if you have a USB port, serial port on the front of the CPU, that's current product. That's kind of bread and butter of CompactLogix. So not to worry about that. A couple other things to note here. The MicroLogix 1400 was an example this year of some supply chain challenges. So we started the year with MicroLogix 1400 being active. And then back in, I think it was February, Rockwell ran into supply issues and quickly moved it to active mature. But then we had issues procuring the product. So yes, it's active mature. I don't expect it to go, I expect it to be end of life very soon. And some of the components I think already are end of life. Another thing to note is just because say like a SLIC 503 is shown end of life here, that doesn't mean every single part or every single module for the 503 is still available. That just means there are some products that are end of life, but there are other specifics that are discontinued. And I think we've got a slide later on that talks about some of the specific SLIC part numbers. But and again on the active side, so you can see all the micro 800s are active. We still have two flavors of ControlLogix and CompactLogix that are active. The 5570 or the L7 ControlLogix are probably the oldest out of those four. And just last year, Rockwell finally released redundancy on the 5580, which was the last piece of technology that you couldn't get on the new controllers. And so now, more or less, anything you can do in a 5570, you can do in a 5580. So that's kind of a message that at some point the 5570 is going to go active mature. We don't think that's going to happen until a few years, but as technology matures, that's probably the next platform that we'll see go to active mature, in the next 4 or 5 years or so. Go ahead, Mike. Okay, so this slide here, we're talking about SLIC migrations. And so I mentioned earlier that there's a wiring conversion utility available, and that's available from the SLIC to the 5380 or the high performance CompactLogix. So this slide basically just shows a little bit of the technology comparison between the two products. It's night and day. I mean, there's the 5380 now has built-in security. So, it seems like every day we're talking to customers about securing their systems. If you have a SLIC PLC, you're just not going to be able to add a whole lot of security to it. Maybe you can surround the product, but you're not going to be able to have built-in security like you can with a 5380 with built-in SIP security. Also, with the 5380, you have additional technology on the Ethernet side. So you have built-in gigabit Ethernet ports in the 5380 CPU. So that can be used for remote IO, or that can be used for HMI communications. That can also be, you can have a built-in ring, DLR ring, or you can set up 2 IP addresses and segment your network out on a 5380, which you could not do with the SLIC. So that's a big enhancement as well as far as your networking goes. And obviously the productivity with increased memory, safety. 5380 has basically the guard logics has been built out, so you can do machine safety with pretty much all the 5380 systems. Go ahead, Mike. Another product that was released a few years ago that we're seeing more people move to on new projects is Flex 5000. So the Flex 5000 is the new generation for Flex, and it's the same footprint. In fact, it's literally you could remount Flex 5000 on a system that had Flex. And so that came out with version 5. The first release was version 31 of Studio 5000. But again, it has a gigabit architecture. Some of the improvements over the original Flex. Now you can support 16 modules with a single network adapter. The old Flex could only do 8. The standard product has an extended temperature range from -40 to 70 C. It also has some G3 conformance capabilities out of the box. In version 32, excuse me, we added highly integrated heart to the analog modules, and so that means now that you can get to the heart configuration directly in your IO tree. In Studio 5000, which we couldn't do before. This is the first product that has that capability, and currently the only one right now. So if you really use a lot of heart, you should really look at Flex 5000. And then the latest addition to Flex 5000 was analog safety. So that was added last year with version 33 of Studio 5000. So this is really good process IO with the hard and the analog safety capabilities. It's really something to look at on new systems. Go ahead, Mike. So the PLC 5 modernization, this has been a product that we've used for quite a long time now. Like the PLC 5s have been discontinued for 5 years. So the support, we see the support for PLC 5, the service support is ending at on 2020. So the PLC 5s are obviously ripe for converting, and definitely either contact us or use Architecture Builder yourself to create the bill of material for this, because there is a manual that helps you create the IO conversion if you're using the IO conversion chassis, but it does get complicated, and so that's where IAB comes in to help out with that migration. But we've had many successful PLC 5 migrations over the years, and still doing them this year, and we'll do more next year. So go ahead, Mike. This is what the conversion kit looks like. So you see in the top left, you have your PLC 5 in place, and then what you do is you essentially take the rack power supply out, you remove the IO modules, and you remove the terminal blocks. You take all the IO modules out as well, and then you reland. You can't really see it on this picture, but on the ControlLogix chassis there, you reland the field wiring from the PLC 5 terminal blocks behind the ControlLogix in a conversion rack. And then those cables, those gray cables you see going into the new ControlLogix IO modules, plug in to the conversion rack. So you have a direct conversion on your IO, and without having to lift and land any field wiring. So it does add about 3 or 4 inches of depth to the PLC 5 chassis. So it's important when you're doing a PLC 5 conversion kit, swing arm conversion kit, is to do your accurately measure the space in the panel, especially the depth, to make sure you can, if you want to use this, that you have enough room in the panel to do it. So go ahead, Mike. So so the slick, so a little bit about slick. So for the most part, all the slicks are end of life now, and so we've got end dates for these, and you can see the different part numbers, the CPUs, the chassis, the IO, power supplies, etc. The slicks have been around for 30 years. Probably one of the most successful platforms that Rockwell's ever introduced. They're everywhere, and so now it's time to move these to CompactLogix. And so the same conversion utility, conversion arm we have for the PLC 5, we've introduced now for the slicks. And so we're just starting to do these. Now, if you have a slick installed and you want to look at specific availability of each of your different modules, go to the Rockwell Lifecycle Status website, and you can type in these specific part numbers to see if they're still end of life, or if they've been discontinued, because there are some CPUs and other modules that have been discontinued on the slick system. So here's what the modernization looks like, more or less. So we can do, we can typically we'll do the 5380, because that's the higher performance CompactLogix, and that's where we've created the swing arm for. But if you had another reason to use the 5370, you could. This is just going to be our top recommendation. And if you have questions about communications other than Ethernet, if you do have to keep serial there, the good news is that a few years ago, about 4 years ago, Rockwell released a 5069 serial module. So it's that will handle most of the serial communications. And that serial module is designed, to support Modbus. It's also designed to support migrations like this. So it is a good idea when you're doing slick migrations to diligently look at all the communications that you have. Some of those communications you might be able to upgrade to Ethernet, like if you're communicating to a PanelView, and if you're using data highway or ControlNet or something, we can definitely help you migrate that to Ethernet. But there might be some other systems you're communicating with that still need to be serial, and largely we can handle that with the 5069 serial module. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and Mike's going to take you to the MicroLogix modernization and a couple other things. Hello, Mike.
Sorry, I unmuted myself. Good morning. My name is Mike Masterson. I'm one of the automation specialists out of Houston for the Reynolds Company. Part of our modernization plan is to start taking a hard look at our MicroLogix processors and try to get them slowly converted either to a Micro 800 or a compact Logix platform. Effectively, at the end of this year, the MicroLogix 1400 will not be available. That is the last of the MicroLogix 1400s out there. So Rockwell has come up with some tools and some migration strategies to take those systems and port them over to Micro 800, down to the fact that even you can make the CCW software emulate and look a lot like RSLogix 500. A lot of people don't like to learn new software, so we can make it look like the old software. So where we stand on this, for the most part, the MicroLogix systems will be going up to either a Micro 850 or an 870. That's for those who are utilizing the communications modules or the Ethernet. The MicroLogix 15 migration has a different strategy, because a lot of times for migrating those, because they utilize 1769 IO, a lot of times it makes more sense to take them to a 5370 type processor, because you can utilize the old IO. So this is one of those things I will say, when you have these decisions, feel free to reach out to your automation specialist and we'll give you some guidance on what might be the most effective and maybe the less painful direction to go when you're doing these type of conversions. But effectively, if you're running MicroLogix in the plants, please consult or get with your Reynolds rep, and let's talk about moving you over to a different platform. We want to do this, be ahead of the curve, so we don't run into any issues when these things do go bad. Now, the Micro 800 is actually probably one of our lowest cost processor PLC by far. 8 inputs and 4 outputs. The smallest controller really has a starting point of around $100. So this is our small controller. It does have a purpose-built HMI for it, which is the PanelView 800, which is a low-cost HMI. Size limitations are, I want to believe, 4, 7, and 10 inches. So that comes packaged with it. These are for your items for these little islands of automation where you don't need everything talking to each other. This might be something that's not connected to the outside world. This is where the Micro 800 really fits. And for a low cost connector, it has a lot of tools and tricks. First of all, the software is free. We do have an MQTT add-on instruction for it. This controller also supports Ethernet IP and Modbus TCP out of its Ethernet port. Makes it a little bit more unique to a lot of our controllers. This is one of the first ones that does support Modbus natively on it. And it can effectively, the 870 can effectively get up to that around that 200 IO point range, depending on how you configure it. So it does fit the bill for where a lot of the MicroLogix platforms sat. And with that, now I'm going to discuss a little bit about industrial controls, some products you need to look at, maybe if you have out in the field. Time to modernize a little bit. First one is, I used to be the one of our industrial control specialists a long time ago when the E1 Plus was the state of the art overload for us. Well, that effectively was made a mature product in July of last year. So the new replacement is the E100 electronic overload. It has been out for a while, so we're not reinventing the wheel here, but it covers a lot of range here. You can go from a 1/10 of an amp up to 800 amps range. Not one product, by the way. I want to clarify, there are multiple products within that 0.1 to 800 amp range. But it can, excuse me. One thing they have taken out of it, it does not support communications modules anymore. If you're going to go to a specific comms module, you will need to actually go to the E300, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So this is our performance base level contactor that we're trying to get people to utilize now. 4 of it. It can both mount to your 100C type contactors, or there's a DIN rail mount system for retrofits. With that, now the E3 Plus has been discontinued and is now, we're now going with the E300 overload. This is our networked overload, and one nice thing about it, has a lot of the new features that the E100 has, but it also has, it can support 3 different sensing types: current, voltage, and ground fault, and it has multiple comms modules available for it. So we can support Ethernet IP. We still support DeviceNet for a lot of those older MCCs, and we can also support Modbus TCP using an AnyBus adapter for it. This is a modular system, so you can get it as bare bones as possible. Then you can go and add on stuff like jam indication, fault codes, and IO modules to it too. So we do have configurations. We do have actually a way to cross these, the E3 Plus to the E300. Our proposal work software will actually do that cross for us. So if you do have these situations where you have some older product and you need to upgrade them, please reach out to us and we can do the cross for you. And with that, we're going to talk briefly about software modernization. Quite often people want to know what software is available. Are we going to keep it alive? Will it support specific firmware? I mean, Microsoft operating systems. So all these questions are, what version of 5000 supports 32-bit operating systems or 64 bits? All this can be found in the PCDC, which is our product compatibility and download center. If any of you search Rockwell PCDC, it will take you to the page I'm talking about. Where this, you can pull up specific information on Rockwell software, what operating systems are supported, security issues, what firmware works with it. All this information on software is there. So also you can find information on whether software is currently available or if it's been retired, such as some of the retired software There is some servo software out there that's been retired, but PicoSoft for our old Pico microcontrollers is obsolete also. And there are certain other products that I will talk about specifically in a second that can only support up to 32-bit operating systems. Those will show that those, basically all the limitations are shown in PCDC, where that software resides, and whether it's at a preferred, managed availability, limited, or retired. So I will point PCDC out as a reference where you can find all this information on it. Also, feel free to reach out to your Reynolds specialist and we can look that up for you. Now, operating systems, one thing myself and my counterparts are making a push on, RSView 32 has been officially retired. For many of you, well, you probably thought that had been retired years and years ago, but no, it hasn't. So it is now officially retired. There are issues with Microsoft patching that will make it actually not work with certain upgrades. So with RSView 32, we have migration strategies over to FactoryTalk View SE. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, we can support 64-bit operating systems with that. More importantly now, I'm finding a lot of people, it's the security issues. A lot of people have to work on their network security for their automation systems. Well, with the FactoryTalk View SE, we can support Windows domain user groups. So we can follow the Windows-based security policy. Also, we have support for virtualization, and it's an infinitely more scalable system than View 32 was. It could be anywhere from a standalone system to a client server system with multiple servers and multiple clients. Again, if you have any questions on this type of monitor, there are also conversion utilities and there are services involved for converting View 32 products. We are actually making a push, and we have a list of people we think have View 32 out there, and we're making a push to get out there and make them aware there are some specific issues. The Microsoft DCOM patch issue that's coming out can effectively shut down View 32. So that's another reason it's important. If you have it in your facility, you need to reach out to us and let's have a conversation. And with that, hopefully if Mr. Freddie Sherrill with ProSoft is here, I will let him continue on for the last couple of slides.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everybody. My name is Freddie Sherrill, and I'm the Regional Sales Manager covering our Gulf Coast territory for ProSoft. I am based out of Houston, so work closely with the guys with the Reynolds Houston team. And then, of course, with all of our other locations throughout the Texas market. But I also have other states under my responsibility. And what I'm going to be talking to you all about today, a lot of people know ProSoft for our in-chassis modules, but we have some other ways that we can help with the modernization process. When you have older equipment, you're installing new equipment, you're not doing a complete rip and replace, but more of a phased migration to be able to communicate from some of those legacy protocols to the newer Ethernet IP on the control and CompactLogix platforms, as well as the newer HMIs and drives. So Mike, if you'll go to the next slide. So specifically going to be talking about 5 modules this morning, all of which are focused on SLIC 500 platforms to Ethernet IP communication, MicroLogix to Ethernet IP communication, older drives, older panel views, and then give some updates as well on some of our newer products to help with some of the migration. So if you'll go to the next slide for me. So with our DH485 router, this is good for the earlier SLICs, the SLIC 501s, 502s, and 503s, being able to go to the Ethernet IP communications through DH485. This does support device level ring, which can be key for how you're setting up your architecture, as well as direct to tag from your controller. And then as well as it allows you to program over Ethernet to the SLIC 503. This is something that when you're connecting some of those older controllers, again, this is a replacement for the 1761 net AIC module that Rockwell used to have. If you'll go to the next slide for me, Mike. For our DF1 router, we've got the DF1 routing module and the messaging module. Most people just use the routing module because they have the pretty much the same cost. So to give you that full functionality that you will get from the routing module. This is, again, a replacement for the 1761 net ENI. Again, you're looking at anything from SLIC 504s, some 503s, 505s, as well as the MicroLogix controllers to be able to communicate from that port, from the DF1 port to Ethernet IP. And so this is what a sample topology looks like. There are different ways that we can also use this module, because one of the things that we don't have, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is our ANX, which would allow for the connection to a PLC5. But if you aren't using that DF1 port on your PLC5, then this could be a potential option to get that communication to Ethernet IP from a PLC5. So that's something that you'd reach out to. I'd get you connected with our application engineers. So of course, reach out to your Reynolds account manager, and then my contact information will be on the screen at the end if you need to reach out to me directly as well. But you'll get access to the product will come from Reynolds. But again, being able to help with any of those communications and the phased migrations from anything that's speaking DF1 that has that capability going to Ethernet IP. And again, think about the replacement if you were using the 1761 net ENI modules, with those being discontinued. This is a direct replacement for that to get to your new panel views, your control logics, your compact logics. Next slide. So with our control net router, this is something that if you are if you've got a control net, maybe Flex IO or drives that you're looking at, being able to use our control net router gives you that capability, as it can be a Ethernet IP target or an originator. It can also be configured for Modbus TCP IP, as well as for master or slave communications. This is, again, something that gives you the capability when you're looking at maybe you're trying to get to compact logics or control logics with a control net device. One of the things that we also focus on outside of just the communications modules is being able to, we have some wireless products as well, but this is another area that, depending on what you have set up, we've got Can Open as a network that we just released a module on as well. Some customers may have that type of capability to go to Ethernet as well. And then if you'll go to the next slide for me. So our device net, this is something that we're seeing where customers are trying to get from device net to Ethernet IP. You think if you've got older drives, or again, anything that from a older panel view standpoint, this is a module that you can configure to route that device net network. some of the features of what this also allows is the PLC5 emulation mode. You've got direct to tag technology, and then you're able to get some diagnostics and able to capture packets to make sure that you are having the correct delivery over your network from DeviceNet to Ethernet IP. And one of the things that I always like to point out to anyone, you can go on our website to allow you to figure out, what are the protocols that you're looking to communicate through. You'll see in the yellow box, you'll select your first protocol. Let's say you're trying to go from Ethernet IP to Modbus TCP IP. You'll select those two protocols and it will spit out the part numbers and potential parts. So that way you've got a start of what you're looking for to be able to reach out to your Reynolds rep or myself to help you understand if that is the correct part and for your application and for your process, as well as being able to get you connected with our technical support to talk through your application, to talk through your process, to make sure we are using the correct equipment and not having to rework through something. But this is a great way where you can see what we have, understand what protocols you are looking to work through and configure for your networks. And this will give you the information where you can click on our different data sheets. Some of our different notes, our user manuals as well, are all available for the different parts through our website. Next slide. And so one of the things that I did want to make sure I made everyone aware of, our ANX2 projects or products were for the Data Highway Plus, DH Plus. So PLC5, Bluehost, our older communications for PLC5 to ControlLogix. Those were discontinued. We ran into a chip shortage. Our next product will be the ANX3, and that's currently delayed right now for a chip shortage. So anything that you are trying to get PLC5 or Data Highway Plus, DH Plus to Ethernet IP, please do reach out to me directly as well as your Reynolds rep. So that way we can make sure to keep you updated. I am keeping a list of customers that have projects that are coming up for when this is released. We're hoping to get some more information at the end of Q3 from our material supplier. That's the next time that we will have an update. But just want to make everyone aware to let you know that we do have something in the works. And once that is available, if you've reached out and we've gotten you, if I know that you're looking for this type of product, you've got this type of problem that you need solved, make sure that I update you as I continue to get information from our product management and development team for our ANX3 products. And this is my contact information as well as our tech support. I always encourage customers to reach out to our support. It doesn't cost anything to reach out to them, but if you email them, it creates a ticket that we can track. If you haven't gotten a response, you can reach out to me and say, hey, Freddie, this is my ticket number where I reached out and asked about this, haven't heard anything back. That's typically not the case, but sometimes that does happen. But that is a great resource to be able to talk through your application and make sure that we are using the correct parts, as our support and application engineers are very knowledgeable with all of the customers that we work with in different applications and processes.